Greetings, everybody. I'm Jeremiah.
That's him.
She's Vania.
That's me. Welcome to another episode of the Beard and Curls podcast, where we talk about dating, relationships, marriage, mental health, and so much more.
And before we proceed, smash that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube, or follow us on one of your favorite platforms for more great content going forward. So what are we talking about today, love?
Today, we're going to be talking about the power of listening.
And trust me, we're going to go in. You don't want to miss this. Cue that intro.
What's up, guys? It's your girl, Margot Bingham.
Karen Parsons.
You're now tuned in.
You're now tuned in.
You are now tuned in.
You are now tuned in
to Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls.
Beard and Curls. Keep it locked.
Our guest today is an innovator as well as a tech founder in the field of sales. He has been featured in 2 published books on Penguin. His projects have been featured by Seth Godin as well as some major media outlets.
You know him, you love him. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're going to start. We're going to be doing a lot of talking about listening. So listening is defined as making meaning from sound. Now, that's the simple definition. What does listening mean to you?
Well, how I define listening, it's way beyond that. Is you're registering a sound and you're using your heart and your creative energy, maybe even some spirituality, to try to open yourself up and really try to understand what is the thing that's making the sound. Because the sound is actually an abstraction of what's happening in the other person. They are feeling something, and then they're trying to translate incredibly complex feelings and thoughts within themselves to then turn it into words in the form of sound. And when you just take a word at face value, you are only getting a very small percentage of an abstraction of what that person might be feeling or trying to communicate. So real listening is far beyond just using your ears. It's using every part of who you are as a person to try to truly understand what's happening in the other.
It's interesting because when you hear listening, it sounds simple, but it's actually way more complex than it sounds. It requires intentionality and like people really making an effort.
Even like what's happening right now is listening. It's an unfortunate definition, right? Because as I'm listening to you, I'm watching your facial expressions. I'm seeing your hand gestures, and oftentimes hand gestures are an expression. They're always an expression of what's happening in the brain. Even very precise hand gestures, that is a precise concept that they're trying to articulate. If it's a kind of this type of a hand gesture, that the thing that they're saying, they're still feeling a lot of mixed feelings or emotions, or something else is happening too. So they may say something in a very concrete way, but if it's said kind of with different facial expressions, listening is not just hearing the sound. It's trying to capture what's going on in the other person. So it's like every single thing can be brought to the table. How they're breathing, how they're, even the tonality in which they use. Just like if I say like the tonality in which they use, or the tonality in which they use, right? There's so many other components of listening, including body language and all of that, how they're dressed, what their background is like. All those things go into being a great listener.
Wow.
That is great. I like what you said about tonality, and we're going to dive into that later because I want to learn a little bit more about that.
Sure.
So what sparked your interest about this topic, listening?
I think with me, I've always been enormously curious about human behavior. And part of it was I was trying to figure out myself. I was trying to figure out how I fit in the world with others. When I was in 2nd grade, I had a school teacher tell my parents that there was something wrong with me. And I had to go to a doctor and get it figured out and all this stuff. I got on some medication, and it turned out to be ADD, and I think there's some more to it. But I always felt a little bit like an outsider, a little bit like an alien. I felt a little bit like I don't totally belong in this world. I don't really know how to connect to people in this world, because how different I feel and how the world is, I don't really know what's going on. So I felt like I needed to start trying to really understand people in order to be able to connect with them, in order to feel a sense of belonging, or in order to really get anything done. And then there's a very practical component of listening where I started recognizing, I've been reading a lot of personal development and sales books since I was 17 years old. No, it was 18 years old. And I started recognizing that if you can be a great listener, if you can really understand someone, you can help them and you can have much higher productivity. and including just leadership models where if you can listen and help persuade somebody to where it feels like they want to do the thing that you're asking them to do, it's so much more effective. But you can't do that without listening and understanding what they want. But from a real core level, I think my interest in listening has always been about trying to understand myself and just a total fascination with what's going on in other people.
So how do you feel now that you have been on this journey for a while compared to when you started?
Oh, wow. I feel very empowered now because using listening and these type of studies, it's helped me understand a heck of a lot about who I am and how I fit in the world, which is a huge breath of fresh air because it's always kind of painful to wonder, like, I don't know, I feel very intelligent, I feel gifted, but also the school system thinks I'm stupid. So like, what do I do about that? And being able to listen and understand psychology has helped me be able to find the right people, attract the right people, to really find actual answers and to show up in the world in such a way that people really value me, because everyone values a good listener, right? If you can listen to someone, more intentionally, if I can listen to someone more powerfully than their mother or their spouse, their daughter, their son, their boss, their employees, all of a sudden that creates a real magical connection between them and me. As you study personal development or leadership, oftentimes the people that go to the highest ranks of success, they're the people that are best with people. So yeah, I do have some fair amount of technical skills, but I kept going. I'm most interested and most fascinated by people. And I want to keep learning that. So I just kept investing in people. And the rabbit hole gets so deep because you can go from just understanding some basic concepts of body language all the way to neuroscience type stuff that just gets really fun, or like Jungian archetypes, or these different layers of consciousness and shadow selves and all of that. It's made me so that it just feels like a gift now. It just feels like a really great privilege to be able to have that ability.
I was going to say, it almost sounds like a superpower.
It has become a superpower, yes. Yes.
Like when I hear you speaking like this, I feel like being able to listen is kind of like the highest level of respect that you can show to someone. So when you shared your story, I'm like, yes, that's why people feel valued, because you're basically giving them the opportunity to express themselves and actually showing respect to that. And and that's something that we don't get often.
I think most spouses feel unseen by their other half, because as we just go through our life and change and transform, it's just a natural part of living and being. I think most children feel unseen from their parents. I think most employees feel unseen by their employer, because everyone's transforming all the time. And often we just assume that someone is the same way, and we can't really uncover who that person really is today, this year, right now, if we're not really willing to listen with a true open mind. The thing that's always frustrated me about current relationships in my life is, as I've transformed, you can tell that someone's only listening to you with a certain predefined definition, or they have an assumption about who you are. So they can't pick up the subtlety of different changes. And I think listening gives you that key to really see someone with who they are today, who they are now. And that's all anyone really wants. They want you to see them right now. They don't want you to see them necessarily who they were yesterday or who they were 2 weeks ago. They want you to understand who they are today and what they're feeling right now. And you can't do that without that ability to just go, let's have a blank slate and have a real curiosity about who this person is today. And I think that's one of the most powerful aspects of listening, is to try to just put everything else aside. Because if we just live our normal life, I mean, everyone's woken up and been like, I don't want to work at this company anymore. I don't want to do this thing anymore. I don't know if my number one hobby anymore is even interesting to me. And if that's true for you, my favorite TV show, I don't even care for now. If you can have that sort of an emotional variety just in a Monday through Friday setting, or on a Saturday, or what, imagine what's going on in other people over the course of months, days, or years. And if that's true, then it's likely that you actually don't know who that person is unless you're really, really, really willing to listen and truly try to identify what is going on with them today. And it takes a real curiosity, a real commitment, and a real love, and a real sense of exploring, and a real sense of journey to be able to stick with somebody and try to really help enable them to keep redefining themselves and keep re-exploring who that person is. And in that way, when they feel that seen by you, they continue to feel a lot of trust, a lot of respect, and a lot of freedom in that relationship.
As you shared, this has become like a gift, right? And as you mentioned, a superpower. So I was just curious to know, like, how is it now that you have improved this skill so much? How is it to deal with other people? Because it must be hard also. Like I must think, like, the more you grow, the more challenging it gets when you have to deal with others that maybe they didn't choose to grow in this area. Like, how is it? How is that for you?
Yeah. I mean, there is a love-hate to it. I mean, the first part is it can be really hurtful to, well, it's actually caused some issues, because if I have the ability to listen like I do, and everything I just shared with you, it's not very hard for people to want to be around me. So next thing you know, you're starting to wonder, are they around me because they love how I can listen to them and connect to them and support them and make them feel seen? Are they ever willing to reciprocate? Because there can be an accidental kind of parent-child dynamic that shows up, because as I start listening, I start becoming some sort of a parent in their unconscious mind, or they're just getting some sort of a validation need met. And then oftentimes it can come without reciprocation, where they just feel like, now this is great, I'm just going to take. And that's the relationship that I'm going to have with Brian. And it can be quite hurtful. And I've gotten better at not attracting those types of people. But when my self-esteem was a little bit lower, while my gifting was high, and I think this is a big problem for a lot of people, is I think their gifts can outgrow their self-esteem to the extent that they start attracting job opportunities or spouses, they're dating people, that they're starting to feel great because they can attract people in droves, but they might be the wrong people because their current self-esteem isn't really at the same level of their gifting. So it can be a very painful little window when your gifts and your skills have outgrown that. You've got to help your self-esteem grow. You got to help your self-esteem grow as well, so that you have the ability to attract the right people and the self-esteem to only have those people in your life and to be able to draw boundaries. So it's been, it's been a little painful sometimes. Yeah, because if you're helping everyone else feel seen all the time, and they're not reciprocating or making you feel seen, it can be challenging. And then the other issue that can come, that's shown up for me a lot, is sometimes I'm getting an overload of information, because I can just see and feel and sense a lot of things. Another area that this came from is I was doing a lot of kind of door-to-door type random stopping people on the street and prospecting and selling. And I've literally stopped over 10,000 strangers before and talked to 10,000 people cold. And for every 4 people, I could typically get one person's phone number to then be able to try to sell something to them. So I've literally done that. And with all the stuff I've read and learned and all the listening and all that, is I can see things very fast in patterns in other people, and I'm very sensitive to it. And sometimes it's an overload of information that just can become a little bit distracting. And then it's like, where is the line for me? Because if I know what someone's going through and I can really calibrate and be empathetic to them, but they're not going to reciprocate it, when is that just totally dysfunctional, and when is it useful? Because that's a very, all of a sudden there can be a little martyr thing that takes place. And that's one of the issues with personal development in general, is like, as you grow, sometimes that's the shadow side. That's the downside, is there's not really, people don't give you a playbook. Like, hey, and maybe you have, maybe with your relationship coaching, and Jeremiah with your counseling, you probably could help me with this, is there's probably contexts and strategies in which, as your skills grow, you set better boundaries. But in some cases, my boundaries are just like, I just would rather be around no one, or just my wife, than hang out with people that are going to not totally be there for me as much as I'm there for them. Getting better at that, but that's been one of the issues that has taken place.
Yeah, I like what you said about boundaries. I think that's so important, like to dive deeper into the different types of boundaries, like that you have, because it's not only healthy and unhealthy. You have healthy, you have rigid, so there are more type of boundaries boundaries around relationships, around time, around money. So I think getting a better understanding of boundaries can help with that, definitely, because it is a true challenge. As you grow, things change, and you can end up getting super overwhelmed, and while if you're not intentional about these boundaries. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I was very interested in that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is, like you said, boundaries, and also just the awareness that you have as far as like knowing that, okay, this is what I bring to it. But at the end of the day, if I don't take care of myself, that self-care, then you're going to eventually, burn out or, grow resentful or different things like that. So you got to definitely be mindful of just what you're bringing into it and, what you're getting out of it as well. So it's a two-way street. And unfortunately, not everybody's going to be able to provide you with the same level, of support that you can provide them. And that's where you have to then start making tough decisions as far as, okay, I need to maybe limit my inner circle because I'm not getting, reciprocity and things like that.
Yes, and also knowing why you're doing it, because if it's affecting your mental health, for example, you get anxiety or you get, you start to feel like, oh, I'm not feeling good, then you can analyze that and be like, okay, I'm doing this in order to achieve this. So like for me, when I'm able to articulate exactly why I'm doing something, it gives me more peace also, and then I'm able to explain it if I have to. And yeah, so it creates a little bit more of a structure in why I do what I do for myself without having to feel guilty.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the good thing that you also said too is that right now you started to, remove yourself, not necessarily isolate, but it sounds like you kind of know where you can get that from. Like you said, talk to your wife. Right. So you know who the people are that you can go to get that kind of support level. And so
and the right people have shown up. And one of the things that I've recognized even recently is, I wasn't applying some of the things that have made me successful in my career to my personal life. And I was looking at, okay, for example, if I'm, doing sales and marketing, it's really a numbers game, right? Where you have to be great and you also have to talk to enough people. And it's like, have I been doing that with finding the right friendships? Like, no, I have. Like, if I took the same level of activity I took towards finding the right people as far as becoming friends, and I took that to my sales and marketing career, I would have nothing. Right? So I'm starting to look at what areas have I generated success and have truer fulfillment in, and how do I take some of those skills over? And I've recognized that sometimes it's just, to become successful in any area of your life, it does take like daily actions and daily intentions. And if someone's feeling lonely or like you're not feeling like the sex life is good enough or whatever, like maybe you have to initiate 5 times more. Because if somebody's not, if they have something in sales and they need to sell more, it's like you have to get a little bit better and you have to initiate way more. If you don't have enough friends, like, start to calibrate, draw boundaries, and figure out who your tribe is, but then take a lot more action and initiate a lot more. And that's been something that's been super useful for me this year. It was a little bit shocking to me how fast people were able to respond of the right type of people as soon as I just started taking that initiative and just saying, okay, I'm going to take the initiative of my sales and marketing career and I'm going to bring it to some of these things in my personal life. And it's been awesome.
So I wanted to actually ask a little bit about that. Like we talked a little bit about how people are not able to listen because there's a lot of things going on with the technology. We're in the age of communication. And so there's a lot of distractions, a lot of things that are going on in our minds. And so how are we able to kind of remove all of those things, clear our thoughts in order to truly listen to someone?
It's a good question. How to clear your thoughts so you can truly listen. Well, I think it definitely depends on the moment, right? I mean, if you're in a sales call, you should hopefully have enough incentive to be able to listen, but even that's not always useful or always possible. I think remembering that there is more. If you really start listening from a really interesting place as an explorer, as somebody who's looking at this as a frontier of relationship, like there's people are so interesting. And I think some of what's taken place is people have disconnected from themselves and others to such an extent that they found that technology is more interesting than people. And sometimes that's an aspect of burnout and just true tech addiction. And that can be handled in a different way. I mean, like there's some, like for example, even just turning your phone to grayscale and having it be black and white is a great way to ruin the addiction to the phone, because your brain is actually addicted to the colors almost as much as anything else associated with the phone. And I don't know if you've done that, but you'll find it. If you turn your iPhone to grayscale or your Android to gray, where everything's black and white, you're like, this is boring. All of a sudden, your phone becomes less boring and less colorful than real life. So you don't want to look at it as much because real life becomes more colorful.
I have to try that. I haven't tried that.
Try it. Seriously, try it and let me know. I mean, it's shocking when you see it, because I think our brains are highly just addicted to the colors of our phones, especially the red push notifications. I mean, there's neuroscience behind this stuff. It's why it's a red push notification. So you make it all gray, and all of a sudden real life becomes far more interesting. And I think in a similar way, listening can be far more interesting than your technology or what's going on TV, because if you truly look at the person in front of you and you start to clear your thoughts and start to tune into you, and this is one of those principles of listening that is incredibly powerful. It's actually a psychotherapy technique where you can use your own body to start to try to measure what's happening in the body of someone else. Your brain is powerful enough to pick up these unconscious cues, and you start to get fascinated by the way somebody says a word. Like if you say a word, like I have a different, like if you say word, you'll notice people have a different relationship with a word that they're using based on a very interesting way that they say it. And that seems kind of advanced, but the more that you just start to be like, whoa, like that was interesting. You said this thing in such a way. Like, what does this mean to you? You said last summer, but the way that you said the word summer, it felt like there was a lot, like, what was summer like for you? And you'll find out, oh my gosh, it was the best and worst summer of my life. And you might be able to discover that because of the way that they use summer. It was a way that your mind all of a sudden picked up. There was some interesting variance in the way that they said the word summer than what I was expecting to hear when somebody said the word summer. I know that sounds really abstract and really hard, but if you're just sitting there in mindfulness and just true curiosity and look at the conversation almost like an artist or a poet, you will be able to start picking up all sorts of weird things. I was interviewing somebody for a job at one point, and I was like, gosh, I feel like there's something happening where I feel like we're on like there should be cameras here, and there's like a TV, like we're on some sort of a TV show or something. And they were like, yeah, actually my whole background is in journalism and TV production. And I was like, oh, okay. And I somehow I'm able to pick up, there's something about them and the way that they're sitting and the way that they're communicating with me, that because I was just allowing myself to be eccentric and kind of artistic with the conversation and just say what's on my mind, I'm starting to just discover these weird things that are showing up, that my unconscious mind is powerful enough, and so is yours, that if you just allow your unconscious mind to just share with you what it's curious about or what it's noticing, and you say it to the other person, all of a sudden, boom, that created a much deeper connection. And they're like, wow, like all of a sudden that person's being seen. So there are these really odd things that you can just start relaxing and just turn it into a very interesting adventure. Every conversation can turn into an adventure if you let it. It's really fun stuff.
Wow, no, powerful. I wanted to kind of just follow that up with something else along these same lines, like empathetic listening. Like, how could somebody use or practice empathetic listening, or genuine listening, so as they sometimes call it, to truly hear not just what's being said, but what's not being said as well, like the underlying feelings, the underlying message?
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, there's body language that can be super useful. If somebody isn't speaking clearly, typically if somebody is feeling really themselves and they're feeling really clear about the thing that they're trying to share, there's a sense of progression to it. And if there's a lack of progression, it's likely that there's something being unsaid. So you can even, or if you feel like here's just a basic, technique in sales, is I would ask someone, do you feel like that could be what you're looking for? And I listen to how they say the word that they're saying. So if there's a difference between like, yeah, yes, oh, definitely, yeah, like there's all these different yeses, right? And all of a sudden you're like, like what is that? And then to address it, like, hey, you said yes, but I kind of got the feeling that there's maybe a little something doubt there as well. Like, can we talk about that? So as you're listening to the way that they're saying words, or the tonality in which they're sharing it, or sometimes I could tell, like, for example, in sales, or typically I can tell if you're following up with someone, I can tell if the decision they've made based on how they answer the phone. I can hear how they say hello, and I know how the conversation is going to go almost every time. There's a certain way that they say hello when you're about to have a new expanded future together, and there's a contracted way that they say hello energetically when they're feeling like they're going to let you down. Even the way that they clear their throat in the first maybe 15 seconds of a call, you can have a really great idea of what's coming next, and you can intercept what's coming next and try to take it in a new direction without having made them say what they're going to say. You try to intervene. So I think your question was, how can you use some of these techniques to be empathetic? And one of the ways that you can do that, like what I just shared, is if you can tell something's going to be hard for someone, or if they are feeling some way and they're evading from sharing it with you, a real way to be empathetic toward them is to maybe even bring it up and make it non-judgmental, like where it's just not a problem. And there's some simple techniques, like for example, Chris Voss in his great book called Never Split the Difference, it's about hostage negotiation, has amazing empathetic techniques. And one of them is called labeling, where if you say like, hey, it seems like you might be feeling a little frustrated right now, or it seems like you might be feeling a little conflicted. And the way I said that, it's very non-confrontational, because if I said, you're feeling conflicted, all of a sudden that just feels like it provokes defensiveness, and that's not empathy. You should, if you're being empathetic, you should never provoke defensiveness. Sometimes unskilled empathy might provoke defensiveness because you're just saying like, oh, I caught you and I want to help you right there. But that's really actually upsetting. It's kind of traumatic to have somebody just do that. If they're feeling a little like they don't know if it's okay, they want to say something, they're feeling something, they don't want to talk about it, and you just bring it up, like that's upsetting. But if you're saying like, it seems like you might be, that is an invitation to say, seems like you might be feeling this way. It seems like you could possibly be feeling a little frustrated right now, or a little like doubtful, or a little, seems like you might be feeling like amazing right now at this point of your life. There's no risk. And to be truly empathetic, I think it's to have that kind of like, you don't want to have this gotcha thing. Like just because you can tell something's going on with someone, maybe it's not appropriate to bring it up directly. And that's kind of an amateur thing. And you guys are experts. I'm probably saying, well, this is probably a total review for you, but it's not for a lot of the people that I work with, where you can be so excited because maybe you use this listening skill and you something that was maybe a little off, or they said something in a way that showed a little hesitation or a little anger. That you caught a little flash of anger when they spoke on their face, little micro expression or something. It's not empathy to just go straight after it, like pounce on it. You might be able to talk about a thing without actually talking about a thing. And you can do it in a more roundabout type of a way. And that may be more of an empathetic way of communicating with them, just based on who they are and how ready they are, is just talk around the subject and explore around it. Sometimes even when selling or normal relationships, you might ask some questions. This is probably a counseling technique as well. You might ask some questions that you think the root of a problem is here, but you might ask some questions like around the circle here and get a little closer and just see where there's defensiveness. And it's not empathy to go straight to the core issue. That is a lack of empathy. That's more of like, psychopathic or that's more of like a sociopath, just to not care and go straight to what that person's, hot button is. You have to go, how would I want to be handled? If somebody could maybe see something about me that I wasn't totally comfortable with them seeing just yet, how would I want them to approach it? That's much more empathetic.
Exactly. No, I love it. I mean, I appreciate everything you shared just now.
Yeah, I like that. And it's also like meeting the person where he or she is at in their journey. So it's not about you, it's about where you want to meet that person. If the person is still needs more time, then you have to offer that comfort level. So that's very important, because everybody is at a different place in their journey. And if you're not able to meet that person where they're at, then they're going to be overwhelmed and they're not going to make any progress.
It's not super useful to just have it not go anywhere, but it's also not useful to have you push something before someone's ready. So even in the sales conversation, I always teach people, ask permission before you just go there and start sharing a solution. Like, wow, like I see that, I've heard you, that's interesting. I can see that's important to you, like this subject. And can I share a couple ideas? Can I share a few thoughts with you and how I think what you could be supported, or how I could help, or how maybe some of the ideas would maybe help you think differently about this. As soon as they say yes, you've connected with them with empathy, and you've empathetically provided a transition with permission to now whatever you share, they've said yes to it. And it helps reduce the anxiety in you as well. If you just see something with someone and you immediately start trying to give feedback and helping them, you'll find yourself, if you really pay attention to your body, you'll find yourself feeling like you're trying to sell them on something. And as soon as you feel a sense of like try, like it's a little, you'll feel a little cringe. You'll feel like, oh, I'm trying. And you'll feel an attachment where you feel a ton of like pressure around, I really want them to understand this point. And that means you probably haven't set the appropriate foundation and gotten real permission from that person to share the thing that you're about to share, which is why you're feeling that sense of anxiety as you share it. And you're feeling that real commitment come through. Like you really want to make sure that they hear this, because you're actually doing it oftentimes without real permission, without real nuance. Where if you just asked a little bit of permission, well, I can see that you're feeling that way. I have some ideas and that could possibly help you. Would you like me to share them? As you're sharing, you're going to feel that there's this really interesting relaxation taking place between the two of you versus anxiety taking place between the two of you. And that's another technique as you listen to make sure as you contribute based on what you're listening and finding, you now have an appropriate foundation of how you're going to move that conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. So I want to transition to something you said earlier about tone of voice. I'm very interested in that part because I saw you explaining this in one of your videos that there are 3 types. So can you share a little bit about that?
Tonality will tell you a lot about how somebody's really thinking and feeling more so than what they're actually saying. So there are 3 primary types of tonalities that are interesting to start with as you start exploring this. And the 3 are really, it's about kind of a commanding tonality where you're kind of commanding at the end of a sentence, or there's the neutral tonality, which is what I'm using right now. A neutral tonality is typically the most persuasive because it's not triggering the defense mechanism within you or the defense mechanism within me. And then you have rapport, it's called rapport seeking. Rapport seeking tonality, where you go up at the end of a sentence, and it's kind of anxiety. You'll start to feel more anxious as I go up at the end of my sentence, and so will I. And I become just far less persuasive. And typically, you're communicating how you feel about yourself in a setting, how you feel about someone else in a setting, how you think they feel about you in a setting, based on how you're using your voice. For example, if you feel like somebody is more powerful than you, you're often going to use like, "Hey, how are you today?" You're gonna use the going up at the end of the sentence. Or a police officer will be like, "How are you?" Like, boom, kind of commanding. Male or female, they're doing this because they're trying to create dominant. It's called dominant frame. They're trying to get you and your brain to submit to their energy. Or if you communicate in a neutral tonality, you have what's called an adult dynamic, where you're trying to communicate with them on an equal level, on an equal playing field. So like if a boss walks in and you're like, "Hey, how are you today?" It lets you and everyone else in the room know that you feel kind of powerless and you really want them to like you. If a boss walks in, you're like, "How are you today?" People are going to go, "Wow, they kind of have this equal type of a footing." Or if the boss and they're just like comes in and they're just like, "Hey," it's like, whoa, like what their relationship is kind of messed up. So all of a sudden, everyone in the room can start to understand what's going on with you in that relationship based on how you're using your voice. A lot of salespeople, a lot of dating, people use the wrong tonality at the wrong time. And sometimes because people get afraid, as soon as somebody says something more in a commanding voice because they're trying to take over, the salesperson or the person on the date immediately goes to rapport seeking, and they just go up. And what happens is it just makes the divide greater and greater and greater between the two people. So the more you can just stay in this neutral tonality, the more persuasive you're going to be, the more relaxed you're going to be, and the more receptive that person's brain is to be able to actually hear what you're saying. And you can play with these little things, but it's just so powerful when you start noticing it and you start using it intentionally. And it's actually a little embarrassing sometimes. I'll share this with a sales team, and I'll watch people cringing because some people are notoriously known for that. And it'll change your life as a salesperson or as you're dating. It'll change your life if you just start paying attention to your own tonality and start listening to the tonality of other people. Actually, in fact, if you start to notice the people that you're most attracted to, a lot of people who are feeling powerless are attracted to very powerful movie characters or TV show characters or narrative, storybook characters. And if you start watching movies, and if you start really seeing the person that you're attracted to comes off in a very powerful way, you're going to notice the type of tonality that they use. And that's why you're attracted to that. And if you start to use that similar type of tonality in your life, it's just absolutely incredible.
I really like this. I'm going to do more research about this.
I appreciate that breakdown for sure.
And Jeremiah has this like great voice. So you're able, you kind of have the best of both worlds. You can kind of do this high power kind of thing going on, but also with a neutral frame, which is very persuasive. Like when we were first chatting today, I was picturing you as a counselor, and I was like, wow, I want Jeremiah to be my counselor. Because your voice has a sense of authority to it, plus that you have a neutral way that you're using it, which is extremely attractive.
That's nice.
Never heard it broke down like that. I appreciate that.
That's probably why a lot of people are drawn to you all the time. Is you're using you have a certainty in your voice, which people are attracted to certainty and charisma. In fact, when people are around charismatic people, or people that present a level of certainty, it's called mortality salience. Their fear of death goes down in their brain, which is wild. So next thing you know, your voice of certainty plus a sense of relaxation around the certainty makes everyone around you feel safe. And people just want that. They want more and more of that.
Wow, that's powerful. I have heard that before. That somebody had said that before, that when I'm around, they feel safe. Mm-hmm. And so I like that you were able to really kind of break it down.
Now you know why.
A voice is a weapon.
I think this is valuable information.
How much of this is stuff that you guys know and use in your own businesses? I'd just like to hear a little bit more from you guys on everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, so listening is definitely one of my top values. So that's why I was like so interested to hear what you had to say, because I'm like, yes, somebody who really understands this. So I always emphasize listening, and I break it down in so many layers. When you learn to listen well, you also learn to listen to yourself, right? You increase your self-awareness. You learn to observe body language. Like, I'm aware of tone. The way you broke it down, I haven't thought about it in that way. That's why I want to do a little bit more research, but I'm aware of the impact of observing tone, body language, all of that. That's a way of listening. To me, everything starts with listening. And when you learn how to do that well, it's like a new world opening, in front of you.
For me, listening is key. Even going through grad school, that was one of the first things that was kind of embedded in us. It was kind of drilled into us, like being able to truly actively listen, is one of those skills and tools that we actually have to employ as therapists. And it just goes beyond just a therapeutic skill. You have to be able to really be intentional about what is being said, what's not being said, and then also be able to paraphrase, what it is that somebody just shared with you, in order to really make sure that you get a full understanding of what it is that they've just conveyed. Because at the end of the day, you want to be sure that as somebody's communicating certain specific things, that you're capturing the true essence of the message that they're conveying, and then really be able to, pick at it until you can truly get to what the core of what their problem is. They may start out with one thing, but then as you keep, digging into it, asking several follow-up questions. And so like the downward spiral, that's one of the things that we do. To really say, okay, so all right, so this is what I'm hearing, and then why is that important, and going on and on until we really truly get at what it is. And I think there's an exercise of a skill that the 5 questions or 5
the 5 whys,
activity to kind of get to the core of what's really going on. So different things like that.
Yeah, that's something that I learned when I was working at the process improvement department, because the focus was to improve the processes, right? But you have to really figure out what problem exactly you're trying to solve. Because if you try to solve a problem that is not really a problem, then you're wasting your time. So that's why we used to use that a lot. Like, okay, so if you think that this is the problem, ask. If you're struggling with something, ask why, and then ask another why, and keep asking a lot of whys until you unpeel and you go to the core. So yeah, so I think asking questions it's so important. Asking questions is also like a superpower, right?
Right. So and to kind of add to that too, it's like it's a whole process outside of just being able to paraphrase and repeat back to them what they said. It's about like tone. Like you mentioned, as far as like making somebody feel safe, making them feel comfortable. So like one of the things that for me as a therapist that's very important when I'm working with clients is to create an alliance, in the therapeutic process for the client to feel safe, to not see me as the expert. I may have, knowledge about the things that I know, but they're an expert on themselves. They're an expert on their lives. So for me, it's important that I create a safe environment for them to be able to express what it is that they feel without feeling less than, and to be able to know that, okay, so I'm going to maintain a proper distance, a safe tone, and, offer a listening ear, so that way I can create that alliance for them to be able to share everything, because all of that factors into it as much as just me being able to reiterate what they shared with me. So it's a whole gamut. And so you just kind of try to do the best that you can, and hopefully that you'll be able to strike a connection.
And also, one thing that I wanted to add is also creating the right context, because a lot of times I notice that people don't take the time to create the right context to really look at all the players in the game, right? You have yourself, you have maybe the person that you're dating, you have family members, you have your history, so there's so many things that you need to take into consideration. So I like to take my time to create proper context, so you can actually do the work that you want to do, and not like rush through things and avoid maybe things that you should pay attention to.
Wow. And Vania, I have a feeling when you were sharing, I have a feeling that there was like your passion like runs so deep, and it's almost like there's like, even like unconsciously, there's like one or two people like you really want to hear this, like in your own, I don't know if it's your own family or something, but it feels like the passion, it comes from something like very personal to your experience, which is it's very cool to feel how real this is for you. Like when you're sharing, like there's almost a crying out type of a component, and not like a desperate crying out, but like a really wanting to be heard and to make a difference. And I feel like that's probably coming from one or two particular like settings in your life so anyway, that's just kind of what I was feeling when I was like listening to you share.
Yes. No, thank you for sharing that. I think it comes from who I am as a person. So my personality type, and just being aware of my strengths and wanting to use that to make an impact. And another thing that, like, I saw my dad giving a lot of personality workshops growing up, and I remember how much I enjoyed listening to him. So I could literally listen and watch him over and over again, and just see how people react. So I could literally experience this every day with different people, and just enjoy like observing human dynamics. So I think when I became more aware that I wanted to do this more seriously, like more professionally, it all came together. So
Wow.
so yeah, it is like deep in my heart, even before I knew it.
Wow. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Well, that's a great observation. Listening is how we learn how to read people. Listening is how we learn to read people. So it seems like it's an important skill to learn. So I guess, why isn't that being taught in the schools in the same way that reading and writing is being taught as a core skill?
It's a great question. I think overall, I think we're still so ignorant about the brain. And I think it's just the world hasn't caught up to the science. I think the world hasn't caught up really to empathy yet. I mean, school itself, if you even think about the way that school is set up, an 8-hour day, taking a child through this, it's not set up in a way to really care about human nature. It's not. But how can a system that's built in a way only for optimization, and also at the expense of people's hearts and the expense of people recognizing who's gifted and who's not, who's smart and who's not, how could a system like that possibly teach something like empathy and like listening? It's just at a foundational level, I just don't think it's there. And it's going to take probably a disruption from alternative types of education that is built in a more empathetic way. But it goes back even to the workforce. I mean, the school schedule has to be deeply connected to the work schedule, which is we're starting to notice real conflict now because of the lockdowns and school not starting back up. And it's when the normal work, our normal work lives are built in such an unempathetic, unhuman being, unhuman nature. There's no acknowledgement of what human beings really value and what they really need throughout the day. So the whole thing's dysfunctional. It's like how society is built is extremely dysfunctional on all sorts of different levels. It's not built in an empathetic way. It's built for money and for progress, and that's the extent of it. It's built for elites, essentially. That system, I just don't know, is totally capable of having a level of awareness to be able to, and I know I'm sounding so negative here, but a level of awareness to be able to really bring that to the table, not to discourage teachers, because I do think there are teachers out there all over the place. My big sister's a teacher and she's brilliant. She will teach these types of things, but on a core. So what you're doing then is you're relying on courageous teachers that are above average to be able to create change instead of a real change at a system level. So I don't know what's, that's an assumption. I don't know what's really going on, but I just have to think that that's probably the core of it is an unempathetic structure cannot create an empathetic outcome.
Like, how do you use emotional intelligence in the work you do?
I basically use psychology and neuroscience to help companies grow and help sales teams perform better and help marketers and help executives reach higher levels of just efficiency within their organization. You cannot be effective and be really like, I could have, just like Jeremiah, we talked about this earlier, you could have the best framework in the world, but if you do it outside of the context of emotional intelligence, it doesn't matter. Similarly, if I have really great business strategies, but it doesn't resonate with the core of who someone is, they're not going to do it. If the executive team at a fundamental level disagrees with the strategy, even if the strategy is the right strategy, you might as well not even go that path. So you've got to understand what is really happening beneath the surface in order to speed up results. Because ultimately what I want to do is I want to move really fast with companies. Like I'm helping a lot of companies right now go to market or do revenue repair due to COVID. I'm doing a lot. And in order to do that, I've got to dig in. What's emotionally driving these people? What's really going on? Are they burned out? And even in sales, I mean, I've had very honest conversations with people and saying like, man, I think you're closer to burnout than you even know. Just see what they say. Like, yeah. And then just have very honest conversations with them. And if you can have great emotional intelligence, the speed in which you can operate great transformation is just, it's incredible. But if I just come in there with a 10-step program, all that's going to happen is people are going to have defensiveness towards every one of those 10 steps. There's no emotional intelligence. I think a lot of that's what's happening in the world of even consulting right now. So I always create custom solutions based on who somebody is and what their emotion, what the company's emotional readiness level is, and then build strategies accordingly. So that's a big part of what I do. And then the technology that I've been building that's going to launch later this year is really about helping salespeople become more connected to themselves, more emotionally intelligent, and be able to connect better with others.
Nice. I like that. So how can someone find you online?
I would encourage them just to look on LinkedIn. Just find me there. I share most of my content on LinkedIn. I'm less of a social media person now so than ever. So LinkedIn is kind of the last place I'm posting and being active. So I would just encourage them to go there. And then I'll be launching and releasing more updates on the new company that I'm starting very soon on LinkedIn. Thank
you so much for everything you shared. This was a great interview.
Yeah, powerful, man.
Yes,
You shared a lot of great insights with us, Brian. We really, truly appreciate you taking the time. Well, there you have it, folks. That's our show for today.
Thanks again for tuning in.
And as always, like it or not, Beard and Curls is the new his and hers.